shout out to Pod, Pride Detroit. Super nerds when it comes to Detroit Lions content. And I believe it was Eric Schlitt who gathered all the Detroit Lions selections and some of the latest mock drafts. So we'll go over some of these options. You guys let me know how you're thinking, all right?
All right.
Let's start with Ian Valentino, the 33rd team. Drafts Trey Harris, wide receiver out of Mississippi. He says the loss of Ben Johnson could be the most defining offseason move of the entire league if the Detroit Lions don't properly adjust. Getting more talent along the offense might not be the team's top priority, but the struggles landing a true partner for Aiden Hutchinson won't be easier when they pick this late in the round. Instead, getting a more consistent number 2 receiver that offers Jared Goff another excellent option who creates after the catch can raise the unit's floor and hedges against Jameson Williams disappearing. That's Trey Harris, wide receiver out of Mississippi. How you grading that? How you feeling about that?
That's a D. Like, what the fuck? What are we doing here? The Lions don't need a receiver. I'm so sick of seeing this shit.
I'm not going to.
Stephon
So
Diggs,
quit asking.
Trey Harris, no. The Lions need defense, and the Lions need offensive line depth. That's what they're going. No.
This would be worse than, like, bigger surprise than any Jack Campbell, any Jahmyr Gibbs. There's not a chance they go wide receiver in the first round. And one thing that you read specifically within this draft, Easy, said that it's hard to get that edge rusher picking that late in the first. The Detroit Lions will not be picking that late in the first. I promise you that. If Brad Holmes has his eye on somebody, he's going to go up and get him.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm just convinced at this point Brad Holmes has a history of trading up, particularly in the first round, for getting the prospect that he likes. So I just see that as the move. I don't like this at all. I'm a little more like open to it probably than you guys are getting a receiver, because I do think a receiver is a good thing to get, but I wouldn't get in the first round. That first round, dude, you just gotta go edge. I know he doesn't do that. I know he takes BPA, but it's just such a glaring need, and it's the only need. Just do it. Just do it. I don't care about anything else.
My thing is, how does Jameson Williams have easily his best career, because he obviously didn't produce much the first 2, but 1,000-yard wide receiver. We had 7 touchdowns just through the air.
Missed 2 games.
And then you're kind of calling him out. Like, what do you?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
like,
the part I didn't like.
Why we don't need a wide receiver 2? Our wide receiver 2 literally just emerged. And if anything, me personally, this offense, as you said, Spinny, give me offensive line depth, because we need to be running and running and running. Like you said, like you stole something from J.C. Penney.
We don't need any more weapons. We don't. Like, I mean, it's always good. And I think, like you guys know, I stand by the philosophy that you should draft a wide receiver every single year of the draft. Not in the fucking first round where the Lions are right now. Not a chance.
Yeah.
No, this is awful. Awful.
And to be honest with you, this kid's not even like on my radar.
No.
as a prospect, I'm like gooning over, fawning over, whatever phrase you'd like to use.
Yeah.
I'm not a who's ever talking about Trey Harris. Let's be real about it. I mean, I get you're picking 28.
He's got to be a big guy. He's not a big guy.
I just also think too we have a tight end who put up historic rookie numbers and then did not have a good year last year, and I don't think that was anything on his part. I think that was the emergence of Jameson Williams. So I think between that and signing Tim Patrick, like these moves have shown that they can get that production on the margins. They don't need to go out and get it. They have everything from within. So
Trey Harris, 6'3", 210, has had starting in 2022. 65 catches for 930 yards, 10 touchdowns, 54 catches for 985 yards, 8 touchdowns, 60 catches for 1,030 yards, 7 touchdowns. So, damn good career, but no, we don't. No. Okay, who's next?
Well, my computer's actually fucking frozen. I'm ready to throw this thing across the fucking stage.
Don't do that.
We're back. Second pick. Still a little frozen. Looks like an offensive lineman here.
You want to send me the link?
I can't do anything. It's just
Pod posted it?
not doing nothing right now.
Did Pride of Detroit post it?
Yeah, probably Detroit posted it.
I got one right here if we need a quick audible.
Go ahead.
All right, this is via Tankathon, fellas. We got 3 days ago this was updated. And at 28, the Detroit Lions take edge. Texas A&M, Nick Scorton.
I'm hurting for a Scorton,
What do
baby.
you guys think about Scorton? What are you guys' first thoughts on that?
Me personally, I'm not like I would grade that. I know a lot of people have him as like a second round grade right now. A lot of people say he's coming out. At pick 28, you're basically picking the second round. I'm in like the B B plus area.
Yeah, I would love that.
I like Nick Scordon a lot. He produced fairly well with another great defensive line teammate on the edge with Shamar Stewart there. Obviously, we have Aiden Hutchinson, Lee McNeil. He's a big body guy. I think he's like 6'4", 280. You know, I know we like some of those tweeners. Might be a little different philosophy now that we have Kelvin Shepard there, but we know Dan Campbell wanted a lot of the same stuff. He was out forth and talking about that. I love Nick Scordon. I like him and Shamar Stewart. I think that Shamar Stewart is – I'd probably have both those guys in my top 5 when it comes to edge rushers in this draft class, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I would love that. That'd be a great move. Like he's a guy that can fit perfectly opposite Aiden Hutchinson. Yeah, that'd be an A for me.
I did not know much about Nick Scordon. I didn't know he came from Purdue. Shout out, former Boilermaker. Yeah, in 37 career games, this guy has 31 TFLs and 17 sacks. The production's there. 6'4", 280, big body that you guys talk about that Brad Holmes loves going on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson. So, yeah, I'm definitely down for this. He was ranked the #1 edge transfer going into this season. And, of course, A&M got him because they drop bank when it comes to recruiting and definitely the transfer portal. Nick Scordon, edge, 6'4", 280. Chris, you passing this?
No, this is an A. And I'm not delved into the rookies yet. I'm not in the draft class, full disclosure. But this is an A just off of what I just said last time. Like, I don't care, just get a good edge, and that's what I want to see. I like what I'm hearing. So I'm all in on it. But again, just the move itself will get me like an A-, B+. Just getting an edge will get me will get me there.
All right, next one we got here. This is from Thor Nystrom. His name's Thor. That's from
kind of dope.
Fantasy Life. That is pretty sweet. He has the Detroit Lions taking Tyler Booker, offensive guard out of Alabama. He says, the Lions need help at offensive guard if Kevin Zeitler doesn't return. A non-enviable combo of Graham Glasgow and Christian Mahogany is their projected starting duo. Booker would provide an instant upgrade. He is an exciting guard prospect with a high ceiling. Booker, who declared following his true junior season, has a made-in-the-lab frame, and he plays with great leverage. So how would you feel about Tyler Booker, offensive guard out of Alabama?
I'm here for it. I know a lot of people, and I know me personally. Last year, we were talking about like drafting guards this early. I was kind of tripping out about it. What are you guys talking about? No, I'm good, straight. Like make that move in the 3rd round, and they went ahead in the 6th round. They grabbed Christian Mahogany, who looks like he's going to be an absolute stud for the Detroit Lions moving forward. I am of that belief when it comes to guard, receiver, maybe even running back. I think a lot of those guys can wait till later, unless you have obviously Jahmyr Gibbs sitting right in front of you. But in this situation, we're kind of stacked as like a roster. Like it's depth at this point, and maybe even beyond depth, because I don't know how long Kevin Zeitler is going to be here. You're going to need to make that move here pretty soon regardless. Maybe you're looking at Frank Ragnow's future too. I wouldn't be mad if you're making a 1st-round investment in the offensive line. I think without Ben Johnson, you need that offensive line, both for those running backs and for Jared Goff. I'm all for it.
Yeah, when you look at best available or best player available, where the Detroit Lions are going to be drafting in those late 20s, if they decide to draft there, you're going to see a lot of interior offensive linemen, and I think that is an important part that they need to beef up. I don't think Colby Sorsdale is what you expected him to be. Zeitler's a free agent. Yode's a free agent. You've got Mahogany. You hit on Mahogany. That's great. Who knows what's going on with Graham Glasgow and with Frank Ragnow? They're obviously both going to be here next year more than likely, unless they decide to cut Graham, but they probably won't do that. But Frank, I know everybody's like, oh, Frank said he feels better than he ever has in his entire life at the end of the season. That's great. He also said he will never play for another offensive line coach other than Hank Fraley. So if Hank Fraley decides to leave, you can kiss Frank Ragnow goodbye. So you do need to get some backups in there. You do need to get some depth in there. And this is the draft where I think you start to reload your trenches. And that is a piece that they can use, whether it's an interior, whether it's a center, whether it's a guard. It doesn't really matter. They'll play both. Yeah, drafting a big dude out of Alabama sounds pretty good to me.
And to be honest with you, there's one we talked about defensive line, maybe being Brad Holmes' like weak spot. I think offensive line is probably his strongest.
Yes,
so far.
A lot of those guys were
outside of Colby Sorsdale. What were you gonna say?
I mean, Penei Sewell fell to him.
Yeah, Penei Sewell fell to him.
What else?
Mahogany. You picked up Zeitler on the free agency.
Yeah, Mahogany was a great one. I think the book's still out. I'm gonna go B- here because of that Manu pick. We just haven't seen it yet, so it's kind of an incomplete. But I think just you saw what happened in the biggest game of the year. It was the Super Bowl, and the Eagles' defensive line just completely took out an elite quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. And I think you definitely need to upgrade this defensive line. And I don't know if you can wait until the second round. I think you have a better shot at hitting on an offensive guard in the second round compared to a defensive lineman in the second round, which we've seen him go with Pascal and with Levi in the second round. I think you got to go first round D-line here, personally.
A couple comments from Woodward Sports chat. Denver Blair says, I said guards and edge. So, yes, Anakin Sky Ogres. I remember I used to think that said Sky OG.
Yeah.
Anakin Sky OG says, not that early. Hey, yo. Super Bowl Guardier asks if we're going to do a first-round mock draft soon. Probably closer to March or whenever you're – I mean, we'll discuss it.
Yeah.
But I'm down. Yeah. I'm totally fine with it. To the point where you're talking about, like, we need to grab defense, I don't necessarily think you guys are wrong, but I just know how this man drafts. It's going to be BPA. Mm-hmm. And if he values this guy as a guard over the 5th or 6th best edge rusher, he's going to take the best guard.
And it's not a crazy thought to have. Like, sitting at 28 or sitting around those late 20s, that interior offensive line is probably the 3 best players remaining are probably all going to be interior offensive linemen. This is where we saw Graham Barton go. This is where we saw those other guys go last year. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Chris?
Yeah, I like it. I like it even more, obviously, if you pull a trigger on a big, say, Myles Garrett move. This is a home run. But I like this move. I like this move because I think this is the only argument you can make outside of drafting a defensive lineman is an offensive lineman, because that is what our team is. Our team is led by our offense, and you're asking our defense to be good enough. Mm-hmm. That's what the formula has been. This whole regime, this whole franchise is built around offense first, defense. Can you be good enough? So I'm not opposed to keeping a strength to strength. And you saw it start to crumple last year. So I think it's very important to keep that.
5 of these mock drafts have us grabbing those guards too. By the way, just offensive linemen.
Yeah, there was a lot of offensive linemen in there. Field Yates had us taking offensive linemen as well. Another one here from our guy Russell Brown.
Shout out
from Fantasy Pro. Russell Brown from Fantasy Pros.
Let's go.
Shout out.
He has the Detroit Lions the first round taking Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Mississippi. Despite having a ton of depth on their defensive line, the injuries prevented this group from taking off last season. As the Lions head into the offseason, they can look to revamp their defensive line. Adding a player such as Walter Nolan would certainly help that. He's an explosive athlete that provides the Lions with plenty of versatility. He'll need to become more consistent with his hands, but he should provide Detroit with a spark in multiple spots up front. And that is our guy, Russell Brown. And
shout out.
I want to check this guy's size real quick.
6'3", 305 pounds.
I was just about to say, he's got to be a big boy.
Yeah. Listen, if I'm doing positions, I'm picking defensive line. Mm-hmm. BPA is how Brad's going to go. But yeah, give me somebody along that defensive line. I don't necessarily I want to go edge like directly just because you have 2 defensive linemen. They're phenomenal. But if you're talking about building that depth, especially after an injury-riddled season, sure, go grab another depth piece. You guys can sit behind these guys. But DJ Reader, they're going to start a lot of games for you this year, knock on wood. The edge is where I want to go. Go get Aiden Hutchinson's other partner. I don't necessarily think Davenport was a miss, but if he's going to stay injured as often as he is, kind of is.
Yeah.
He can be good when he's healthy, but you got to be available to be healthy, to be good, I should say. Best ability is availability. Mm-hmm. Struggled over 15 words in those sentences. But, yeah, I'm cool with this. And I like Russ Brown.
Yeah.
A lot of these names, per se, I would have to do, like, more homework on.
Oh, yeah. We're going to dive into those. Here's one that we all know.
Who?
Here's a name that we all know that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different analysts have the Detroit Lions mocked to take in the first round. Jack Sawyer, edge, Ohio State. The quote here is from Ryan McChrystal of Sharp Football Analysis. He says, the injury to Aiden Hutchinson exposed the Lions' lack of depth. With Marcus Davenport hitting free agency, adding a cheaper rookie contract to the mix is probably a necessity. Ohio State's Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau both seem to be the type of physical players Dan Campbell would appreciate. So 6 different guys have us taking Jack Sawyer. Nick,
crazy.
How do you feel?
I don't love it, but I think he's more of just like a, kind of energy guy. I don't know if he really, it never really popped out to me until the last games of his career, to be honest, as Jack Sawyer. I thought he was underwhelming throughout his entire college career besides the last few games. So Are you buying that that's the type of player you're getting? Or are you going to buy into the production that he put up his entire career? Which one are you more on the side of, Spencer?
I think I don't think he is this complete difference maker, game wrecker.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think he'll be a top 15 pick. If he was a Nick Bosa or a Chase Young or what those guys showed they were at Ohio State, he'd be a top 10 pick. I think he's accurately leveraged to where they think he's going to go in the draft, and I think that's because he could be a really good number 2. He could be a guy that could beat you one-on-ones. He can be a guy that is big and physical and can play in the run game a little bit. So I think he's I think he'd be a good number 2. I don't think he's a game breaker, but I don't know if you're going to find a game breaker at 28.
Jack Sawyer's a second-round pick, straight up.
Yeah.
I guess, again, I said it earlier, at pick 28, you're kind of leaning towards that second round anyway. If you think he's the best edge at that point, go ahead and grab him. But, like, it doesn't excite me, I should say. I think he is a guy that's more likely going to take on blocks. I think he's kind of boxy. I don't think he's quite bendy, just from what I watched. Good sack numbers, but then you go, if you want to look up these games by sack or, like, just watch these actual sacks, there's, like, 6 of them that are just unblocked. Mm-hmm. Like, so, yeah, the numbers are, like, gaudy, but if you're not being blocked at all, on a great defensive line, by the way, because there's another stud on there too.
JT Tulamolio.
You're gonna, that's what it's gonna look like for you.
Kalahubalaba.
I don't think he's a bad football player. I don't think he's a first round pick. I guess is what I'm saying.
My only pushback to you, Easy, would be, don't you think that this Detroit Lions defensive line is a solid edge away? Like you talked about him being, kind of the benefit of a great defensive line. Being next to a healthy Hutch, arguably the defensive player of the year, on top of Aleem and Reader, that sounds like a position where he could be put in to succeed. So yeah. I'm not all the way mad at it. I get that he might not have the highest upside, but this sounds like a guy that can have the positions, or that could be put in a position here in Detroit to succeed.
Chris, I think this team is so close right now, though, where you need to take that high upside swing and not go for a guy that might be more reliable.
It's like a depth piece to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you can go high upside here, fellas, are you going to do it?
You absolutely are, and that's what Dan Campbell does. Brad Holmes. That's what Brad Holmes does. Brad Holmes doesn't draft the safe pick. Brad Holmes drafts the guys that he thinks could be the star based on their raw talent and ability. Jameson Williams, Aiden Hutchinson, Penei Sewell, Brian Branch, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell. These are all guys that are freaks. And he went out there and he got them because he's like, all right, I can make you an all-pro. And he has for the most part.
Weezy D313 says the combo was secondary last year, not defensive line. And we had an elite defense until we got hurt. Part of that elite defense was Marcus Davenport, who was flashing for you.
Yeah, and you got
Hutch got hurt.
Zadarius Smith.
Yeah, he got Zadarius Smith.
So that is a good combo, him and Hutch.
But he's definitely,
But you got him for one more year, and he's in the back 9. Nobody will disagree with that. So